لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين، وصلى الله على سيدنا ومولانا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل.
ثم الصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. كل نفس ذائقة الموت. Sitting in the graveyard in the cemetery, it's a very humbling experience for a lot of us, and a lot of the time it's a very stark reminder of where our life is going to end up. And it's very, very interesting because if you go across kind of history and kind of different civilizations, this is a reality that everyone has accepted, whether they like it or not. And it's a reality that for every single one of us. And sitting inside the graveyard where we've buried people that we grew up with, people that raised us, people part of the community, people that nurtured us, people that gave us guidance, they supported us maybe in business, in different parts of our life, but now they're sitting inside, or they're lying down inside the grave. It's a reminder to us that inshallah one day we will end up there. And the reason why I say that inshallah is because a lot of the time we think of death as the end, but actually it's the start of a new life. And that new life, it's described in the Quran in very various ways. And it's up to us to go to the Quran and ask, what ways did you describe this life? Today my topic's not to describe the different types of life that exist and even describe the barzakh or even the day of judgment, what happens in that afterlife, or in paradise, in hell, what happens. There's lots of descriptions of that. But I think something that doesn't get touched on is that first moment when death actually takes place. And that itself is described in the Quran as well. Before we get into that, just a point about kind of the belief in death and the day of judgment itself. And as Muslims, this is something that is unanimous across every single Muslim, that there are three things that make you a Muslim. The belief in these three things. One is belief in Allah, the belief in guidance, which would be the Quran and the Prophet, and then belief in death and the day of judgment. Disbelief in any one of these, or rejecting any of these, kufr of any of these, means that we're outside of the fold of Islam. And what's interesting is that there's a interesting hadith of Imam Sadiq where he explains the different types of kufr that we have. Under the verse in Surah Baqarah, it says, إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Under that, the tafsir for that, Imam Sadiq mentions that there's two types of, he actually mentions there's six, but there's two broad categories. One is the kufr that is of an intellectual nature, which through our tongue we will profess. For example, when we say La ilaha illallah, that's intellectual in its nature. When we say that we believe in the Prophet being the last messenger, that's intellectual in its nature. But then there's the kufr that is practical in our amal, in our actions. And that is the second type of kufr that all of us over here might inadvertently succumb to, not because we don't believe in Allah, not because we didn't profess His oneness or say that He is unique, but it's through our own actions on a day-to-day basis in the decisions that we make. And this is we call this a practical kufr, or disbelief. And this is something that we need to then, the whole process of tazkiyah in our life is to do with this aspect, that how do we become people that are believing in Allah, and Allah being part of our life, a central part of our life as well. So inshallah for today, what the topic I want to discuss is the nature of death itself. What is it? The second thing is some of the verses that talk about that first moment after death, when the soul is taken away. And interestingly, there's a conversation that takes place almost instantaneously that gives you an indication that you've moved into another life. And it's not the end of life, because that conversation is taking place, and naturally you can't have a conversation if you're not alive. And then the third thing is, practically, what can we do that when that moment comes in our life, when our soul is taken away, that it is a good end and not one that is difficult to bear, and the punishment of the grave starts from that point. Please recite a salawat.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل.
So the first point about death itself and the nature of it, a lot of the time we think about and we describe it as the soul leaving the body. Okay, and we say we make this kind of action that the soul is kind of leaving the body, it's going somewhere else. And a lot of the time when we speak about Allah, we look to the sky and we say that Allah up there. We make our dua like that. But we know that Allah is not bound by time and space. So he's not occupying the space up there. The same because he's immaterial. In the same way, the soul is immaterial. So how does something that's material, the physical body that we have, and the soul, which is infused into the body, how does that disconnection take place? The reason why our kind of actions and our thought process will go towards a soul leaving the body, or kind of disconnecting and moving away into a different space, is because this is how we've grown up. This is how we understand the world. We go into the car, we leave the car. We go into the house, we leave the house. We leave someone's presence. So any type of departure that we have is of a physical nature. But with the soul being immaterial and the body being material, the two, in theory, shouldn't mix. It's like oil and water. They don't mix together. So how do we understand that? One example that we can give that's makes it a bit easier to understand, it's not perfect, but it's a bit easier to understand, is that when we have electricity and a light bulb, that we turn the switch on, the circuit closes, the electrons flow through the wires, and then the light bulb comes on. As soon as you turn the switch off, the electricity stops flowing and the light bulb switches off. It's the same thing with our soul, that when that moment of death comes, that time comes, this is when Malik al-Maut and his team come and they switch the circuit off. The connection between the soul and the body stops, and therefore the body then dies. Okay, it stops living, but the soul continues because Allah has created it that way, that it's everlasting. Okay, so what does it go into? It goes into another body which is suitable and a higher realm. So that's just that moment of death, just having an understanding of what that looks like, where it's not a departure of the soul as a physical entity from another physical entity. It's a disconnection of one thing from another. Okay. The second point of the moment of death itself is that in the Quran, Allah mentions two ways where He speaks about death in the Quran, about when the moment that we die. Sometimes He says mata, which means he died, and sometimes He uses the word tawaffa, which means to take away completely. Okay, and what Allah is trying to highlight to us over here is that I've taken that soul away completely from the relationship of that soul, or that connection of that soul to the body completely. And in Arabic, when we talk about paying a debt back in full, we say istawfa haqqahu. So he's taken he's repaid his debt completely. Okay, so Allah is using the same terminology in the Quran for the relationship between the soul and the body. That the soul, when Allah takes the soul away, or Malik al-Maut takes the soul away, they do istawfa. Okay, so they take it away completely, meaning that there's nothing, no remnants of the soul left in this world, and it's not in the body as well, meaning that the body will die. Okay, when it comes to this moment, and it's the tawaffa that we're talking about, that moment of death when that soul is disconnected, there's two pictures that the Quran paints about that moment itself. The first one, in Surah Anfal, Allah says, وَلَوْ تَرَى إِذْ يَتَوَفَّى الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا الملائكة يضربون وجوههم وأدبارهم وذوق عذاب الحريق. Were you to see when the angels take away those who have rejected faith, striking their faces and their backs, saying, taste the punishment of the burning. So this is the people who they've committed dhulm on themselves, on their nafs, or they have stopped believing in Allah, or they're doing some sort of shirk. And the reason why we say this is because there's another verse where it describes it a bit more. Sorry, please recite salawat. Where Allah says in Surah A'raf, He says, فَمَنْ أَذْلَمُ مِمَّنْ افترى على الله كذبة أو كذب بآياته. Who is a greater wrongdoer than the one who fabricates a lie on Allah or denies His signs? أولئك ينالهم نصيبهم من الكتاب حتى إذا جاءتهم رسلنا يتوفونهم قالوا أين ما كنتم تدعون من دون الله. Their share is as decreed in the book will reach them when our messengers come to take their souls. They say, where are those you used to call upon besides Allah? So over here we're getting a picture that at that moment, for the people that it's a difficult time, it's one of two things. First of all, that the conversation is started almost immediately. Okay, that the conversation is, who was your Lord, effectively? Who did you obey? What was the objective of your life? Was it to get closer to Allah or not? And what did you do to your soul? How did you harm yourself? Okay, and that harm, that dhulm that we do on our nafs is through our actions, because it's a series of micro decisions that we'll make over time, where we will start to chip away at this relationship with Allah, where Allah is no longer kind of a decision maker. He's not part of the decision in our life. And so when it comes to our soul, because Allah has created it in a way to worship Him, to have that relationship with Him, through those sins that we've committed, we've automatically distanced ourselves. Okay, so this is the difficult situation that we'll face when it comes to the moment of death for those people who have done dhulm on themselves in terms of their nafs, and also associated partners with Allah. They've done shirk, be it openly or in a very subtle way. The second picture that we get is from another verse, which is contrasted very differently. It says, الَّذِينَ تَتَوَفَّاهُمُ الْمَلَائِكَةُ الطَّيِّبِينَ يَقُولُونَ سَلَامٌ عَلَيْكُمْ أُدْخُلُوا الْجَنَّةَ بِمَا كُنْتُمْ تَعْمَلُونَ. It's very, very interesting to say that the angels, there's no question over here. It's, I know what you've done already. Come, this is your Jannah in Barzakh. Yeah, you've purified yourself. This is your reward over here. Okay, you don't need me to question you, to ask you, to remind you what happened in that life. Yeah, so it's automatically those angels are creating that space for us, giving us a positive experience, and that first moment is that positive experience of Jannah, let alone the rest of it with the blessings and the bounties that come as a result of it. What's important to recognize is that this questioning that is taking place, we can look at it in one of two ways. One way will be, I'm here to punish you. I want to kind of destroy you. You've been committing oppression to yourself or to your own nafs. The other way is Allah, through His rahmah and His mercy, is finding a way to remind you, you still have time in Barzakh to correct yourself. You still have time to do the course correction and come back to me. Yeah. So that's this process of Barzakh itself. It's a method of purification for the people that led a life in which they oppressed themselves, they did dhulm to their own nafs, and forgot Allah in their life. Please recite salawat. Now that we have a bit of an understanding of this process of once death actually takes place, that it's a disconnection of the soul from the body, then the first moments of death itself, that once the soul is disconnected, what happens, how the angels approach us, it will be one of two ways. Either it will be slightly harsh, they'll be questioning, or it will be Salamun alaikum, enter. Okay? For us, where we will be naturally, as human beings, we are going to make mistakes. We will not be perfect. So what can we do to make that end a good end? That first moment, that when the angels come to us and they greet us in barzakh, how do we create a good end at that, sorry, a good moment in that, and good experience over there? And we have a dua that a lot of the time we recite this in Qunut, from Surah Al Imran. We say, رَبَّنَا إِنَّنَا سَمِعْنَا مُنَادِيًا يُنَادِي لِلْإِيمَانِ أَنْ آمِنُوا بِرَبِّكُمْ فَآمَنَّا رَبَّنَا فَاغْفِرْ لَنَا ذُنُوبَنَا وَكَفِّرْ عَنَّا سَيِّئَاتِنَا وَتَوَفَّنَا مَعَ الْأَبْرَارِ. So this word again has come, tawaffa. Make our end of those people who are the abrar, the chosen people, the righteous people. So this is the first thing that we can do, that dua that we make, making it part of our daily salah, or at least reciting it a few times during the week, where we're asking Allah that find a way to make this end good for me. When it comes to dua, we all know that there's dua and then there's dawa. The dua is what we'll ask to Allah, but the dawa is on us to go and seek. And that dawa is that the medicine that we need to take for the soul is through our practical actions that we'll perform. And we can split this into two different kind of camps. One is the intellectual side, the understanding, the knowledge that we'll gain, because the soul, the spirit, the ruh needs knowledge, and we have to increase that our knowledge. In the same way that the Prophet said, Rabbi zidni ilma. Okay? He's asked us to increase our knowledge. So what kind of things can we increase our knowledge about? And in this case, because that first question is about our relationship with Allah and what role He played in our life, one of the best surahs that we have is Surah Al-Ikhlas. And it's something that we recite very, very kind of casually, we forget to think about it. But if we reflect on why it's called Ikhlas itself, Surah Al-Ikhlas, it's the process. To do Ikhlas is to empty or to purify. So when we have impurities within a container, we'll do Ikhlas of that, we'll make it khalis, we'll make it pure. So the same thing over here, Surah Al-Ikhlas, by reciting it, by reflecting on it, it will make our heart pure. So what kind of things are we reflecting on with this surah itself? And where will we go to this for this? There's two things. One, either we go to the tafsir, read it, understand it, and discuss it. Or the second thing is reflect on it, on the surah itself. When we say Qul huwallahu ahad, Allahu samad, lam yalid wa lam yulad, wa lam yakul lahu kufuwan ahad. That Allah is one, that He is unique, that He is self-sufficient, and all things depend on Him. He was not born and He did not give birth. And there is no one that is comparable to Him. Reflecting on this is, one, what is the reality of this? What does this mean that Allah is unique? That when we say Allah is unique, there's nothing like Him around us that we can make a reference to say this is, Allah will be like this. So when we say Allah loves someone, it's not like the love that we have. When Allah wants to give, has power, it's not like the power that we have, the strength that we have. When Allah wants to give forgiveness to someone, it's not like how we will forgive someone. He will, if He forgives someone, He's going to forgive and forget. For us, it's forgive but remember. Yeah, a lot of the time. And then on top of that, when we take our physical body, a lot of some schools of thought, they believe that Allah has hands, He occupies a space. But from our school of thought, in terms of the understanding of Tawheed that we have, Allah does not occupy space. He does not have eyes. He does not have ears. He does not have limbs. He does not move from place to place. Okay? So when we think about Allah being unique and being one, what does that mean? And that eventually or essentially should create an environment within us to say that Allah is bigger than what I can understand. He's more worthy of worship than I can understand. We have four types of Tawheed that are discussed in the books of Aqaid. The first will be that Tawheed in terms of Allah's essence and His Dhat. That, as I mentioned, that He is unique in His essence and in what He is. Okay, there is nothing that is comparable to Him. The second thing is Tawheed in terms of, or unity in terms of His attributes and His sifat. So while He is all powerful, all forgiving, all loving, all caring, and whatever names we can attribute to Him from Dua Joshan al Kabir, all of this, they're not small parts. All of this is within one container. Okay, and even to say a container is wrong. All of this is existing at the same time. So when Allah deals with us, it's with all of this at the same time. It's just which one is taking priority. And this is Allah to understand with His wisdom that, do I need to give a bit of difficult life to this person so he recognizes, or do I need to show him excessive love so that he recognizes me? Yeah. So this is Allah's wisdom to be able to recognize that. The third part is Tawheed in terms of His actions. That at the end of the day, we might feel like we are holding the cards in terms of our day-to-day actions, but Allah is the ultimate cause and He's the cause of causes. What does it mean to be the ultimate cause that can kind of do whatever they want for this world? It's not how we are limited in terms of, I can lift one leg up, but I can't lift the other at the same time while I'm standing. Okay, these are limitations that I possess within myself. But how does this apply to Allah? And these are different points of reflection. Once we go through these three levels, then we will start to recognize that in terms of worship, Allah is the only one that can be the object of our worship. Okay, because Allah has said, وَقَضَى رَبُّكَ أَلَّا تَعْبُدُوا إِلَّا إِيَّاهُ. Allah has decreed that you shall not worship anyone except Him. And it's not that Allah needs our worship. What He's done is created us in a way that we are existentially in need of Him. That existential need of Him means that we will only ever be able to turn to Him and worship Him. Please recite the salawat. I'll just have the last few points on the practical side. That the first thing will be that the company that we keep is very interesting. We have a hadith that's narrated from Imam Sadiq alayhi salam, and he narrates from his grandfather, the Rasulullah, and he describes what happened at the time of Nabi Isa alayhi salam. The disciples of Nabi Isa say to him, قالت الحواريون لإيسى عليه السلام. So the Hawariyun are saying to Isa, Ya Ruh Allah, O Spirit of Allah, Man nujalisu, who shall we sit with? قال من يذكركم Allah رؤيته. Sit with the people that when you look at them, they remind you of Allah. ويزيد في علمكم منطقه, that when they speak, they are increasing your knowledge. ويرغبكم في الآخرة عمله, that their actions are almost drawing you towards the akhirah. They're reminding you and saying, the actions of this person want me to desire the akhirah itself. So this is a very interesting reminder, these three criteria of the type of company that we keep and the impact that it will have in our remembrance of Allah. And inshallah, if we don't have this within our friendship circles, then it's something that we can bring in, something that we can start to remind ourselves and other people of, that so that when you look at them, they remind you of Allah. When they speak, they're increasing your knowledge, and any of their actions, be it salah, their sawm, their kind of helping of other people, the community work, their commitment, their service to other people and their family, how they look after their family, all of this reminds you of the akhirah and makes you want to get to the akhirah quickly. The fourth thing that we have is the niyyah and the intention that we keep. And this ties in directly to the concept of ikhlas itself. And a lot of the time, because of the environment that we're living in, where it's so busy, there's social media, there's lots of events happening, there's lots of family around, there's lots of distractions in this world for ourselves, for our younger kids. It's very easy for our intention to get tainted in the process, where we start to forget who we're doing a lot of these things for. And this tainting of the intention doesn't necessarily take place when things are easy, when things are going well. It happens when you're challenged, when there's a conflict between what I want and what the other person wants, and they've possibly done something wrong to me as well. What is my intention in trying to fix this? What is my intention in trying to help the community in terms of trying to kind of, when I'm giving sadaqah, what's my intention as part of that as well? All of these things add up to doing dhulm on the nafs. These are micro decisions that we will make that will then take Allah out of the picture very, very slowly and subtly, and we won't even realize it's happened. So how do we correct this? The process of muhasabah is kind of one of the best tools that we have within Islamic spirituality, that at the end of the day and the end of the week, reviewing our intention, reviewing our actions, and saying, what was the purpose of this? What did I do it for? If it was for Allah, then let's do shukr. If it was for someone else, we can do istighfar to wash away the effects of that. Okay? Because in both scenarios, in both cases, where we can use that, either the positive of the intention was for the sake of Allah to get closer to Him, to get closer to Allah, or we can use the fact that we didn't do it for the sake of Allah, we did it for someone else. Through istighfar, we can use that to get closer to Allah Himself. Now, when we turn to the day of Ashura, on the morning, we have a very interesting personality who was able to do that istighfar and purify his intention and recalibrate in the morning. And this was Hur. When the time came, shortly before the battle started, he took off from the army of Umar ibn Sa'd on his horse and rode towards the camp of Imam al-Hussein. Imam Zayn al-Abidin describes this moment where Hur puts his hand on his head. It's a gesture of a man who is overwhelmed by what he has done. And he cries out, "Oh Allah, I turn to you in repentance, so forgive me. I have created fear in the hearts of your close servants and the family of your Prophet." He then turns to the Imam. He says, "Yabna Rasulullah, is there repentance for me? Can I turn back to Allah in this moment?" This is a man who has blocked the road for the Imam of his time, who frightened the women of the Ahlul Bayt, who had spent days on the wrong side. He's asking, is it too late for me? This is a lesson for us. Is it too late for us? The Imam turns around and says, Naam, Taba Allahu alayk. Yes, Allah has pardoned you over here. Hur then asks permission to fight. The Imam gives this. He goes into the battlefield reciting, I am al-Hur, I give shelter to a guest. On behalf of the best resident of the land of Khayf, I will strike you without fear of doing nothing wrong. He fought and he killed and he gave everything that remained of his life. And when he fell, Al-Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi lay lying on the ground dying with blood flowing from his wounds, and the Imam came to his side. Anta hurrun kama sammatka ummuk. Anta hurrun fi dunya wal akhirah. And then the Imam recites a poem over his body. He says, the best of free men is Hur of Banu Riyah. Free when spears clash and bite. Free when Hussein called his name and he gave his life in the early morning light. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا أي منقلب ينقلبون.
اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد وعجل.
الفاتحة.